I can feel it too. I'll take your worst and the best. I'll be there for you, like you're there for me. 'Cause you are all I need, all I need. I need. How do I say how much you really mean when I can't find no words to speak? Just know you're all I need. You're all I need. Oh, you're all I need. We were floating down the river in your red canoe. You were laughing at my stories, oh, back from my youth. Yeah, and I remember thinking to myself that you were the one. Oh, oh, you were stunning, you were lovely, yeah, you were fun. There was no one else I wanted to see. There was nothing else I wanted to do. There was nowhere else I wanted to be than floating down that stream with you. Oh, that one time on the West Coast in the dead of night, we were watching cruise ships gently pass us by. Oh, and I remember gazing at your face in the starry light. Oh, oh, thinking life don't get much better than a night like tonight. 'Cause there was no one else I wanted to see. There was nothing else I wanted to do. There was nowhere else I wanted to be than sitting oceanside with you. Well, there's nothing, nowhere, no one. Yeah, there's nothing, nowhere, no one. Oh, there's nothing, nowhere, no one. Yeah, there's nothing, nowhere, no one that I'd rather be with than you, my love. 'Cause there is no one else I want to see. There is nothing else I want to do. There is nowhere else I want to be than with my arms wrapped tight around you. Oh yeah, oh oh.
Marriage is the easiest thing on the planet. Said no one ever. Ever. Ever.
This is the talk I wish someone would have given me 42 years ago.
Okay, here we go.
I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm talking like a gangster because I'm telling the enemy he's not going to have your marriage. Somebody needs to hear me in this place. He's not going to have your marriage.
Say it, baby. Say it.
When you say I do on your wedding day, you're promising in advance, sickness and in health, for better or for worse. You'll never face a struggle without me.
What is going on, everybody?
What's up?
Welcome, XO Now family. Let's go today.
Yes.
Family meetings.
Exactly. We're so excited to be with you. I'm Irene, and this is Jimmy, in case you didn't know. And we are so excited to be with you all today and teach you about something that was so important to our family unit healing, our family, the unity in our family, and what we have today.
Absolutely. And we're going to walk through this with you. We're excited to share with you just our story and really some of the components that have led us to have a family that's healthy, a family that's whole, not a family that's perfect, but we're figuring this thing out together. So welcome, XO family, to the XO Now. Just time with us together. We are so excited. We got a picture of our family, I think.
Yes, we do. If you want to put up a picture, there's our family there. The one in the chair is my daughter, Maya. She's 17. We're almost empty nesters because Jaden, the young man in the middle, is 20 and he moved out 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Get out.
And the oldest there, Kayla, she's 21 and she moved out a month ago. So
absolutely.
Yes, we are enjoying this life. And we have two other precious children.
Our bulldogs.
We want to show you pictures. Yes. Diesel is 9 years old.
He's the one on the, I don't know, you're right. The brown one.
The brown one. He's Brindle. And we have found that these dogs are so therapeutic and such a blessing to our family. The other one is only 8 months old and her name is Rain. And yes, she does have blue eyes. She has blue eyes.
We were going to name her Blue, but that didn't work. I don't think you like that. But anyway, we are excited, and what we love about this is we have people all around the world who are joining us through technology. I think this is amazing, so that we can strengthen and have marriages that are healthy, that are happy, and that are whole, and families that are happy and whole. And we also are 2 equals 1. Irene and I have a ministry called 2 equals 1, and we're so just excited with our partnership with XO, and it's equally crazy, equally committed. And we do monthly coaching with hundreds of couples all around the world. And we would love for you, if you want to visit our website, you can spell it out, www.2equals1.com, and you can join our coaching community. And so we're excited about that. We also have the 2 equals 1 marriage podcast. Come on, with XO. You want to talk about that?
It's so great. It's a cinematic podcast, so you can listen to it on Spotify and all of those things. YouTube, you can watch it.
Absolutely.
Like watch it on video, watch it on your TV screen. That's pretty cool. Feels like you're kind of in the family room with us,
Absolutely.
And you know what I love about the whole coaching thing that we do? Today is kind of like a sample of what it's like when you do the coaching calls with us.
Absolutely. And then I think you wrote a book.
Yes, I wrote a book called Reframe Your Shame, and it launched in August of this year. And what's exciting about it is it's on the number 30 on the Christian bestsellers list. And really excited about what God's doing and how he's using it. So if you know anyone who is struggling with addiction, or you are someone who knows someone struggling with addiction, I believe that kind of applies to us all, because
but more about freedom, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody needs freedom.
Everybody needs freedom. That's why from anything that's holding you back from being your best self. But addiction is real, and that's part of our story. So I share that and the how-tos of how to get through it in my book. So pray that's a blessing.
Absolutely. Well, what we have today with our family, we didn't always have. Our story, that's what we have, like 2 equals 1, equally crazy, equally committed. What we've decided as family members, as husband and wife, is we're just in it. Like Rollins 5, like we're going to get through it. And we're going to give you some tools to help you get through and manage, whatever season, comes at your family. I'm telling you, you can manage these seasons with these kind of tools. But for us, Irene and I've been married 23 years, actually 23 and a half almost years. And we like to say it's been about the best 7 years ever, because honestly, for 15 years, our family was dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. And here we were married, we were committed to one another. We were leading a church, as senior pastors. Our family was called to full-time ministry. We were doing life, on football fields and soccer fields together. And, our daughters were in dances and plays. And so our family appeared like we had it all together, but we didn't have it all together. We had family dysfunction. We have family of origin issues that have come from, what we've seen how family operated and how family functioned. Ours was dysfunctional. And because of that, it led to addiction. And Irene now is 7 years sober, and we're so thankful for that, but also with anger and bouts with food, dealing with food addiction and things of that nature. And so we want to give you, this affected our entire family. It affected our kids. It affected our extended family. And so we want to give you some tools today of how to have a family meeting. A family meeting is essential to being healthy.
And if you want to hear more about our story and like details of how we go in depth about it, 100% visit the podcast, listen to the podcast. Lots of great details that I'm sure you all can identify with. But what's crazy about this dysfunction is that we were in for so long, we didn't know we were dysfunctional.
Yeah.
You only know what you know, right? And if you're not made aware that you're dysfunctional, then you will continue to operate in it as if it's your normal.
Absolutely.
And that was us. And when we began to, when I hit rock bottom and I went to rehab and we began this journey of rebuilding our family, we started to really break down where the dysfunction was in our family system. And when we broke it down, we realized that stuff that we inherited from our families of origin, the way we experienced the way love from our early on caretakers, whether that was your parents or if you're adopted, your caretakers, we related with one another based off of that experience. And for me, we had the no talk rule. Yeah. Children were to be seen and not heard. We were not allowed to share our emotions. Sharing your anger was a big no-no.
Absolutely.
Because sharing your anger was being disrespectful to adults. So then we were enmeshed. And what that looks like is we literally had no autonomy. Like, there's too much consensus in the family when we're enmeshed. We don't know where we start and where we end and where the family starts and the family ends. It's like, I can't make a decision unless I run it by my family members, and I'm married now.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? And then there's the dysfunction of being disengaged. Some of us come from families where there's disengagement, like people are disconnected. Yeah. You don't even really consider each other in a genuine way, like showing that you care about one another. You easily cut each other off and don't talk to each other for years. What about your family?
I think it's crazy because how our family of origin, like literally, it caused us to do this dance. As my family was the exact opposite. You shared all of your feelings, and you shared it in a very aggressive way, right? And so whether you were angry, you got angry. Like yelling was a part of, our household, and yes, there was, respect and things of that nature. But, I think those two things, those opposites, we were very engaged. It wasn't disengaged. And so everybody shared everything and nothing became personal. There were no boundaries or no internal boundaries. And so, for me, how this played out in our family is like, when I felt something, I said something. And, how I think many of us know that you can't always share everything you feel. You need to process those feelings. You need to, take those feelings to God. You need to pray about those feelings. And before I ever prayed about stuff, I just, I just verbally blurted it out. And so
it was like verbal assault.
I mean, you weren't there.
No, I'm talking about how it impacted our marriage.
Right.
So in our marriage, it kind of looked like to me, it felt like verbal assault. And how did it impact you? Like my side, like what was it? How did that feel to you? Like when I was disengaged or just?
Oh, it just felt like it felt like you were more committed to, your extended family than you were our family. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you were more committed to who was in other people's houses, but not in our house. And so those kind of things just played up. And I had never been used to that because my family shared everything. And so it was it felt very it felt like you were a traitor. Yeah.
Like I had abandoned you and rejected you because of my attachment to my family.
Yeah.
That was out of order. But this tool of family meetings, one of the biggest takeaways from it that I want to leave with you is labeling emotions. So we don't realize, and I know I didn't, the importance of labeling emotions. Labeling emotions literally is a way that we become emotionally literate, for lack of a better word. Like when we're unaware of our emotions and we don't label them, then we have less of a tendency or ability to be able to manage those emotions. So if I was a 38-year-old woman and didn't know how to label what was behind my anxiety. Was it fear? Was it abandonment, fear of abandonment? Was it feeling rejected? There's something behind what I was feeling, but I didn't even know how to communicate that out loud. And a lot of people struggle with the same thing. And like when we label, take the time to really acknowledge and label our emotions, what we're doing is we're acknowledging what is happening inside of us and we're honoring ourselves. See, when we break free from codependency, we learn to honor ourselves and our emotions. And when we do that, it gives us a chance to breathe and create some space so that we can do something about the emotion that we're experiencing.
And I think practically just asking yourself this question, what's coming up for me? And I think what happens is when you feel something, when you notice something, when something gets stirred up on the inside of you, is asking yourself, what's coming up for me? And when you ask yourself what's coming up for me and you study those 8 core emotions, you can now put a name to what you're feeling. And that's key to labeling your emotions. You know, is this fear? Is this anxiety? Is this anger? You know, and I think that that's key when we're talking about like labeling. It's properly labeling your emotions. For me, it doesn't allow you to say the wrong thing. It doesn't allow you, it first allow you to internally do a self-check before you try to check somebody else.
That's right. And there's no better time to teach this than with young children. You know, we look at our kids sometimes in the grocery store that are throwing a tantrum and acting out, and we judge them. We're like, ooh, look at that. The parents don't know what they're doing. Get a hold of your child. But in reality, the child is feeling something. They just don't know how to express it. So in that moment, we can even teach our kids to take a minute, take a deep breath. Now, what are you feeling? Use your words, label the emotion. You will notice a tremendous change in your child's behavior, just having language behind what they're feeling. So, and I love this one quote from Daniel Siegel. He's a psychologist, and he says that when you experience significant internal tension and anxiety, you can reduce stress by up to 50% by simply noticing and naming your state.
It's great.
This is a psychological proven fact.
Absolutely.
So you want to tell them a little bit about how we did our family meetings?
So for us, like family meetings was absolutely critical, and how we would start out our family meetings. We got creative. So I think one of the things you got to do is just get creative. Like, how can we make talking about hard stuff fun? Right. And so we had this idea to, like, we'll talk about the guidelines that when someone is talking, no one else is talking, but we created a talking stick, right? And so it was literally sometimes a remote control, to the TV. Sometimes it was the toilet paper, when the little brown thing that's left after all the toilet paper is gone. The toilet paper roll. But we had our youngest actually create a talking stick, and we gave her the assignment of, and then what it did is it built up in her anticipation, like, this is going to be fun. This is not something that I have to dread. And so, have fun with it, and I think, and so we were going to start that off. And then I think what was key for us is we just picked a peaceful place, like in our house. And I think that was awesome. Like when we all sat down at this place, in our family room, for us, it became, this is going to be the place of comfort. This is going to be the place of safety. This is going to be the place that we're about to do a family meeting.
and we would light candles and just prepare the atmosphere. Everybody knew that at 7:00 on Wednesdays, it was a no phone zone. We are going to engage as a family, and there were no meetings scheduled. It was a non-negotiable family night. We had pizza before.
Absolutely.
We made it fun for the kids. We had cookies. We might have baked cookies before we had the family meetings, but we prepared the atmosphere. And when we got started, we always had somebody, one of the kids, typically in charge of convening the meeting.
Absolutely.
That means that person was in charge of prayer, reading over the guidelines.
Yeah.
We read the guidelines over every single time to remind people that they can't crosstalk, can't interrupt, can't be judgmental, and they can't have facial expressions that, like, you're
upset. What is that? Confused. Like, why are you saying that?
Or showing frustration or judgment. And that created safety in the meeting. So we went over those guidelines, and then the person who had the baton was the only person who could talk. And they would share from the 8 basic emotions, and we'll show you all the charts in a moment, but we would go through each one, like anger. And Maya, my youngest, created posters with synonyms of the word anger, and she drew pictures of what anger looked like to her. So she'd hold up the sign, and I would say, this week I felt anger when, and I would share when I felt anger. And then when I was done sharing, everybody would say, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
And then I'd pass the baton along, and we'd go through the 8 basic emotions that way.
I think one of the things too, when we involve the kids in like preparing for the meeting, parents, I think this is critical that you give away power, because what happens is you sit in a place of power, and then when they're sharing your emotions, because you're human, you might have a facial expression, you might have a confused look on your face. If you give away power, they won't feel powerless. And so we want to actually, when you give away power, we want to empower them to be in control of their emotions, that they don't have to, fix them for us. So they don't have to, straighten their emotions up because they might get in trouble. And so when you give away power, like in those kind of environments, hey, you prepare, you pray, you do these things. It actually empowers them that it's okay to feel.
And one of the guidelines is we're not going to fix anything. We're going to listen to understand each other. So we would hear things in meetings that happened to the kids during the week. It was really, really interesting when you're hearing for the first time that your child felt shame, maybe about an outfit they wore or a pair of shoes that you bought them, or they got bullied at school. And it was the first time they would share it was in the safety of this meeting. Tears would fall, we'd offer tissues, but we could ask clarifying questions like, can you tell me more about that? But we don't try to fix it in the moment.
That's it. And so the 2 goals of family meetings, if you're taking notes, you're writing these down, they're going to be here on the screen, is the first goal is to provide a safe place to share emotions without interruption. Provide a safe place to share emotions without interruptions. And the second thing is to promote the art of listening. It is so easy to talk. It is so easy to share, for me, what I'm feeling in the moment. The hard thing for me is listen. And these meetings, they taught me how to listen. They taught me how to come into my family's world and try to experience things from their point of view. So the goals of family meetings, let me just say that one more time, to provide a safe place to share emotions without interruption, and also to promote the art of listening.
And there's nothing like feeling like you've been heard. And when someone takes the time to listen, to understand, come into my world and experience it from my point of view, I feel heard. And that's where the healing happens in families. So the first thing you're going to do as far as procedures or guidelines for your meetings is select a sacred time. So select the time that is agreeable to all the family members that we're going to meet. And we keep track of that. We honor it.
We calendar it.
We calendar it.
And make it important.
Everyone knows that they need to be there. And then number 2, what we want to do is, what it's going to do is that it's going to make the family members feel as if they are the most important thing in the world, that you're making time for this. How did that?
So you want to first, you're going to select that sacred time. And then the next thing you're going to do is demonstrate to the family members. You're going to model it. So demonstrate. B would be demonstrate the family members see that the family meetings are more important than anything else.
That's right.
I think that that's key.
Yeah. And then C, we recommend family meetings be held once a week. That's our next tip.
Absolutely. Once a week. And I'm telling you, when you create this expectation, if you will, that it's going to happen, it really allows space between arguments. It really allows space between hard things because they know that they're going to have a platform to share their emotions. And actually, when it's something good, because family meetings aren't just about sharing something bad, it gives them this expectation that I'm going to have an opportunity, to be championed. I'm going to have an opportunity to be cared for, to be, told, great job,
because sometimes when we have these things that we're bringing from our past, from the way we've been parented in the past, sometimes we have parents who were great at celebrating. They celebrated everything and they dealt with all the good emotions or the easier to deal with emotions really well. But then when it came to the hard ones, that's where people got stuck. So this is an opportunity for both good and the bad emotions to be discussed and practiced.
Absolutely. I think the next two guidelines kind of go with each other. But we recommend, that Irene said, they happen once a week. And also we recommend sharing, who's convening everybody, who's gathering everybody at this time, right?
And we take turns.
And I think that we take turns. And then the next one, E, if you will, the person who's gathering everybody is sharing his or her emotions first, right? And so whoever's in charge of it goes first. So if this water bottle was the, what is it called again?
The talking stick.
Was the talking stick. If you are holding the talking stick and you are starting out the family meeting, it's your week to convene everybody, to gather everybody, you're gonna start out first. And you say, hey, this week I felt joy when I was playing golf and I beat my son.
There you go.
Come on. And that's how we would share in these moments. But if you're starting the meeting out, you want to go first. And what I loved about going first is you share the good emotions.
Yeah.
Right. When you're going first, because you're going to have an opportunity to share something later.
Yep. That's right. And the next one is F. When you have the first person has finished and shared and disclosed whatever it is that they're feeling, then you pass the baton. And everybody says, thank you so much for sharing, Jimmy.
Absolutely.
And I take the baton and then I share. And it keeps going around the circle until everyone has had a chance to share.
And what's really cool is when you're sharing, actually, when you're listening to someone share, you are listening to really understand their experience, right? And even if they have a negative experience with you, so if they say, hey, this week, I felt shame when you, posted a picture that I wasn't, that I didn't agree upon. My kids would be like, that's not the right picture that I want you to post, right? It's not your time to defend it, right? You're just supposed to listen. And this is an art, y'all. This is an art that you come into someone else's world. And then at the end of that, you just say, thank you for sharing. And you file that information.
Yeah.
Family meeting is not that chance for you to get back and say, well, I don't know why you felt that, or that's dumb, or
that wasn't my intention.
That wasn't my intention. No, we are just sharing and listening. And then we can schedule time to talk about, at another environment, what you felt about what they shared.
And that brings us to G, which is when all family members have shared, a discussion period can be held so that there's no misunderstanding. So later on, not in the family meeting, later on, another one can be scheduled where we can problem solve, where we can hash something out and have a hard conversation with proper dialogue. But this time in this family meeting, is just for listening to understand.
That's great.
And in discussion time, you can get more clarification. Parents, you might be able to come back and say, hey, tell me a little bit more. Who was it that was bullying you at school? Did you tell a teacher? And you can follow up to address those measures at that time. It's a separate thing.
And let me tell y'all, it's hard. It is hard to do when someone shares an emotion that they felt, when it's especially something that you did or didn't do or didn't intend to do. It's easy to jump in and defend yourself if this isn't the time, which gives us or gets us to now let's talk through practical processes of how to have a family meeting, practical processes. And I think that we've said this a few times. You just want to listen. You have to listen. Listening is an art. Listening is a skill. And when you listen, you don't need to listen just with your words or just with your ears. You need to listen with your body language. You need to listen with your facial expressions. You need to listen by all phones off. I mean, we had this bucket or this bowl that before we had a family meeting, all the phones go into the box or the bucket or the bowl.
That's right.
And no one could bring their phone even into the meeting, because we all have this propensity, like when we're feeling, kind of weird or agitated or, not agreeing, or just my ADD, like you're on your phone. And so we will also want to encourage you to ask questions. There's a method there, in the chat that you can ask questions. We want to encourage you to ask questions. And then we're about to jump into a time of Q&A in a little bit. But number one, you want to listen.
Yeah. Number two, we want to express our feelings only. So we take ownership. We use I statements. I feel. We're not saying you did this or you did that. What we can do is use terms like I felt fear when I saw you or when I heard you. So it's not an accusation. We're stating what we observed.
I think that's great. I think it'd be a great time to just go over the 8 emotions, because like how do we express those?
Yeah. I mean, and we have actually a slide for this, and you can go online, just Google 8 basic emotions. You can Google an emotions chart, print it out, put it on the refrigerator, and make a game of it with the kids throughout the day, and even in your relationships. It may feel awkward at first. Like you're like, oh my gosh, you're like, I'm a grown man. Why am I, why do I need an emotions chart? But we weren't always taught how to label the emotions. So sometimes when we would be in a little bit of a tense situation, and I'd want to listen to you. So I'd offer, hey, can you tell me more about what's going on with your posture right now, your tone? Tell me more about it. You would, instead of saying, I'm frustrated, and I would keep digging until you labeled it with an emotion.
That's great.
Because when you got to the bottom of it, then I could care for it.
Absolutely.
So the 8 basic emotions are anger. That's when you're feeling resentful, irrational, or frustrated. Then we have fear. That's when you're feeling apprehensive, overwhelmed, or even threatened.
Do y'all have that slide? If we can put that slide up, that'd be great.
Then we had pain. We discussed pain, how maybe we had felt hurt or pity or sad or lonely throughout the week. You say the next 2.
Absolutely. I think then we have joy and passion. Joy and passion. So anger, fear, pain. Joy is like happy, elated, hopeful. Passion is like enthusiasm, desire, or zest.
And love, affection, tenderness, compassion, warmth. Love is one of the 8 basic emotions. And this one was a good one just because of my recovery and the name of my book, shame. That's when we're feeling embarrassment. We're feeling humble. And the last one
is guilt. And guilt is, and it's in the chat there. You can grab that emotions chart in the chat. Guilt is regretful, contrite, or remorseful. And so I think when that second process for family meetings of expressing your feelings only, use this chart to express your feelings so that what you're sharing doesn't come across like you're attacking someone. I think the next thing in the process of sharing these or in these family meetings is don't justify. Do not justify your feeling. Like it could say, well, Irene could say, well, I felt shame, but guys, it's not your fault. Or, and she would literally justify it because she didn't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable. Right. But don't justify your emotions. Your emotions are real. Like it is not, you don't have less faith because you have fear. Right. Like faith exists because there is fear. Right. And so when you're feeling these emotions, don't reason them away. Like don't justify your emotions. Don't try to, say, you feel like you're immature or maybe you're not as strong as someone else. No, these emotions are real. And they are, when you share your emotions, you become 100% committed to reality. When you share your emotions, what it is, man, I'm 100% committed to the reality. The reality that I feel this right now.
So like an example would be like, you'll yell up the stairs and say, Jaden, you didn't clean your room.
Yeah.
And Jade, get to it right now, whatever. And then Jaden during a family meeting might have shared, Dad, I heard you yell at me up the stairs to clean my room, I felt angry about it because I had already cleaned my room.
Yeah.
And, if you were justifying it,
yep.
then you would be like, well, I'm not going to tolerate a messy room. But what's more appropriate would be when I saw your room still had dirty clothes on the floor. That's what you observed. I felt shame, disregarded, anger. And
And what I make up about that is you don't care about keeping the house clean.
Right. So I hope that helps give a little context to kind of how it works.
Absolutely. We're going to jump into Q&A in just a few minutes, but we want to just give this important thought to parents.
Mm-hmm.
Parents, it is imperative that when it comes to feelings, that everyone is equal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to drop your position of power.
Yeah.
Right? Because typically, our children, what we've learned is when we did this, right, they were able to be honest with themselves, right? And a lot of times, like because of dishonor, because they felt like, they're going to dishonor us, they weren't honest with themselves. And so it's important to take on, equality as far as a power, a position of power that, we're all equal
when
in
it comes
this
to emotions.
family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is good.
Yeah, it's really,
this
really
is good. I think we're gonna have to get back to doing these again. Even though we got grown kids, we're gonna invite our grown kids over. We're gonna do a Zoom family meeting.
Yeah,
come on.
But what's cool about this is initially it felt awkward. As we practiced, we got better at it. Then we were able to have them outside of the family meeting. So now we'll be at dinner as a family, and someone will just volunteer and go first and just say, hey, I felt anger this week, or I felt shame this week. I was triggered by something that happened. And I had to hear some hard things from my journey with alcoholism in these meetings. We got real. Like my kids would say, I felt fear come up this week when I had a flashback or a memory of when you and mom would argue when mom was drinking. Like that was a real thing.
Absolutely.
And so to be able to hear and empathize with them and say, so what I'm hearing you say is when you heard us having a heated conversation, it brought you back to those times that we were arguing when mom was drinking. Like, I am so sorry. And then it gives us a chance to be a part of healing that wound that we created.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely amazing. I think in the process, we want to listen. We want to express feelings only. We don't want to justify. And if we had to put a D on there, another one, we want to make sure like the playing ground is even.
Even.
We want to make so. I think there's some awesome questions that's coming in.
Sure.
You want to read some of those questions.
Absolutely.
And we'll jump into a time of Q&A. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them and we will do our best to address them.
What age can I start with my children having family meetings? I say anytime.
Yeah.
Literally, if they're 2 and 3 years old, maybe you read a book around emotions at bedtime.
So like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be like an infant. Like,
no. Like 2 or 3. Like you're reading a book about emotions and what we do with our emotions, and you're normalizing it with them. And you can have family meetings when a child is 4 and 5 years old. By 4 and 5, they should be labeling their emotions, or you can be giving them an opportunity to learn how to.
That's it.
At that time.
I think what's important is even if they don't understand it, allow them to experience it.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we don't understand until we experience. So even if they're just showing up, not saying something, they're just getting used to the repetitive nature of a family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't understand it, they experience it. So when they can understand, they're used to it.
And next question, what if someone shares something really difficult or challenging in the meeting time? Are there some things that need to be immediately addressed in front of everyone?
We didn't do that.
Because we wanted to honor the commitment we made that this meeting was for listening. So if a further discussion needed to happen after the meeting, then you would address it.
Yeah.
Not in front of everybody.
But it made them feel important. Like if you follow up and you're like, hey, maybe it's a day later, maybe it's that night before you go to bed, and you walk up in your kid's room and says, hey, tonight when you shared at the family meeting, what I felt when you shared that is I felt concerned. And is there something, can we talk about this further? Mm-hmm. And now what you're doing is you're asking for an invitation mm-hmm. into them expressing their feeling. Mm-hmm. And so when you do that one-on-one, they feel that they are the most important person in the room. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't try to address those. Later on in life, like after we didn't have to call a family meeting, we might address it. But the older your kids get, the older or they become, or the more mature they become, you might be able to tackle some things, let's say after a year or 2 or 3 of doing family meetings.
Yeah, so literally we had to learn how to have this dialogue where we would listen, then we would repeat back what the person said. So I'm hearing you say that when you heard us arguing, I keep going back to that example, you felt fear and anxiety. Can I help you with that? Can you tell me more? Is there anything I can do to help? Things of that nature. Like once we graduated from creating this bubble of trust, mm-hmm. we were able to deal with things right in the moment. But that dialogue took time to develop. Yeah,
that's great. I think that people say, someone asked, is there a physical family calendar to get everyone on the same page? We just use technology that already exists. And so, we start just with a text. Hey, because our kids are not going to schedule it. Hey, tonight is the family meeting. And then around noon, hey, guys, remember that tonight, don't schedule anything. We're going to have the family meeting. Mm-hmm. And then it came to the text right before, hey, in 15 minutes, we're going to have the family meeting. Or just we put it on a calendar and we actually send it. So Outlook, using mm-hmm. Just a normal or Google Calendar and sending it out mm-hmm. to your family so that they can see that it's important and get used to it. And mm-hmm. I think that's really an easy one to answer there.
How do you plan the follow-up meeting? Well, I think that it's an agreed upon time. So for Jimmy and I, we did every Friday. We, as a married couple, every Friday at 11, we had our meeting time. We would have hard conversations at that time. We would discuss household tasks, finances, discipline of the kids during that 1 hour every Friday. Yep. And sometimes our meetings were 20 minutes. Sometimes our meetings were an hour. Yeah. But we scheduled that time. We anticipated that we knew we'd be addressing things. So we weren't, and then we made a commitment to one another to placehold it mm-hmm. so that we could actually enjoy each other throughout the week and make fun deposits and have fun together.
I think with our kids, what we didn't do often is schedule the follow-up meeting, because a lot of times a follow-up meeting schedule brings anxiety, mm-hmm. right? And so we would just pick a safe time, like when they were just playing their video game or watching TV, and just pull up beside them and say, hey, how you doing? Everything going good? You having fun today? Hey, I remember at the family meeting, you shared this. Is this, can we talk about this right now? Because I was concerned, or, I wanted to make sure you felt understood, like give those kind of, so that you get an invitation. Is this a good time? And parents, be okay if they say no. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just let's follow up on that next week sometime then.
But we're going to follow up because Absolutely. It's important. Right. And used to do, actually a good time was to and from school when we're driving our kids
Absolutely.
to school or walking to the bus stop. That was another.
This next question is a good one. Mm-hmm. It says, how do you get a parent on board that doesn't really want to face their struggles through the child's honesty? Wow. That's a great question. Mm-hmm. And I think as parents, we have to lead this. We've got to get emotionally healthy. Mm-hmm. And if there's a parent that isn't emotionally healthy, or if there's one, maybe, you're the wife and you're trying to get your husband in on these things, there might be pre-counseling that needs to happen. There might be, listening to, the XO Now podcast, about the importance of a family meeting. That's what we love this, mm-hmm. But these are the kind of things and what we're doing with XO that we're trying to empower you and equip you to do these things. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, let us take care of that one. That one's hard. Invite your spouse to this, but it's hard to do a family meeting when both spouses aren't on the same page.
And I get it. I do get it. Because remember, I was the one who had a hard time hearing the struggles from the children. So literally, because again, growing up, you were never allowed to share what you felt about the parent to the parent. So it felt like the ultimate betrayal. So that script would play in my mind when I heard my children share that something I did impacted them in a negative way. I felt shame. I felt bad about myself. And I would literally feel my whole insides get hot and like I was boiling over. I had a physical reaction to it, and that was real. And I had to work in counseling to learn how to be honest and allow others to be honest. I had to learn how to normalize discomfort.
It's great. I think that's great. Another question is what if you have a spouse, and this is kind of into the other one, or a family member that finds the meeting dumb or necessary? Well, this was us. This was like me at first. I was like, this is dumb, right? But I'm telling you, when I got a chance to really share, when I got a chance to hear my children, when I got a chance to come into their world, it really changed my whole, perspective on the whole thing. And so I would say, yeah, this is a mature step. Like, this is a step. If someone says, oh, this is dumb, they probably there's more coming up for them.
Yeah.
I believe that that's a mask. I believe that that's a smoke screen, because there's something on the other side of that they don't want to share, or they don't want to feel, or they don't want to touch the emotion, or, maybe they, their family of origin was like, you're not supposed to talk. And so and let me tell you what, guys, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And if you keep doing it, it becomes a desire of your families to have them. And I'm telling you now, this year, we walked through some things as a family where our kids were like, hey, we need to have a family meeting. And people that used to call it dumb don't call it dumb anymore, because we just kept doing it. Yeah.
And they understand the benefit of it, that closeness and connectedness we feel as a family. We have an intimacy now that we never had before.
Yeah. This next one is, it says, do you have a family meeting before the family meeting? I think as husband and wife, it's good to be on the same page, especially when your kids are going through something, because like inside you're looking for something, and maybe, your spouse will see something or hear something that you didn't hear, or you didn't feel, you didn't experience, so that you can talk about it afterwards. So y'all can have, a game plan of how you're going to address it. And so I think it is important to be on the same page as husband and wife going into a family meeting. And I'm telling you, we even found that our kids would, if there was something about us that they wanted to bring up, they would be on the same page about it. And another question was, what do you do, babe, when your spouse or your child is oversharing during a meeting?
Oversharing during a meeting. Well, with the spouse, we can give each other looks and signals and signs that we might be going a little bit too far, which you did with me, because initially I didn't know how to be honest. So learning to be honest was tricky. Yeah. And sometimes I would share too much, and you would give me a signal, and I would kind of adjust accordingly.
We had a trick word. Yeah. This is a word that, wow. Like if we said, wow, like it'd be like, okay, that's it. That's your overshare. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And oversharing, see, this is the thing. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. Like, is what I'm sharing going to benefit someone? Am I life-giving in the way I'm sharing it? Those are questions you have to ask yourself. Like, am I being blaming or judgmental or projecting in the way that I'm communicating it? Because oversharing would look like that. It's when you have left talking about and owning your own experience to blaming and projecting what you feel about yourself really on somebody else.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. This next question is honestly, it's a great question, because I've heard a lot of people, not really want to embrace emotions. Are emotions biblical? We've heard so many of this. I think getting a true, basic theology on emotions, like the Bible says that Jesus wept. Like when he heard that Lazarus had died, he wept, right? Knowing he's going to heal him. Yeah. He still wept. He still allowed himself to emote. He still allowed himself to express his emotion. The Bible didn't have to say that. But I think if we look at Jesus is a good model, right?
100%.
And I think that Jesus, he's well acquainted with how we feel.
He came, like, he's God with skin. Absolutely. Like, he came so that he gave his only son so that we could know that he identifies. Yes. in our shoes, in our flesh, he knows everything that we're feeling and experiencing. He wanted us to be able to identify with him. So he sent his son, he sent himself in the form of his son in human flesh as proof, and in that he can relate to us.
Yeah.
Resources, Pete Scazzaro is 100% the best. Emotionally healthy spirituality, emotionally healthy relationships. If we learn to disciple ourselves and our family through emotional health, we will become spiritually mature. So we can argue all day long that we have been saved for 20 years, but if you don't know how to identify your anger, manage it appropriately, you can be an abuser on Monday and praising God on Sunday.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So dig deeper into the scripture. It's all over scripture. God created all of it, all of our emotions. He created us in his image. So everything we feel and experience, God can handle. He's been there, done that. He created them.
That's right.
It's our job to understand them and manage them.
That's great. And if you think about the fruit of the Spirit in the Bible, the characteristics of the fruit of the Spirit are emotions. Like, how do I know I'm meek unless I emote that I'm meek?
Yeah.
You know, how do I know that I'm patient unless my emotions line up with those?
And self-control.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
And so someone's asking, two people asked about husband-wife meeting. Well, that's not a family meeting, right? Unless you don't have kids, right? That's a different meeting. And we talk about those meetings in our monthly coaching calls. We use those. That's that once a month. We're not going to go deep into that, but that's a completely different meeting that has a completely different set of rules, that has you communicate completely different, especially because those meetings a lot of times are not like budget meetings. They're really like things that are concerning you or you want to bring up in your spouse. And we walk those through, walk couples through those through our coaching call. So those are a different kind of meeting. I think we want to, as the husband, as the wife, as, the adults who are spiritually leading, I think it's good to have a spiritual vision. I think it's good to have, what God wants for our family, for you and your wife to come together on a vision retreat. Irene and I, every January, whether we have money for vacation or don't have money for vacation, we take time to literally try to get a vision for our family. What does God want to do in our family this year? What does God want to do through our family this year? Come on, scripture says without a vision, the people cast off restraint.
That's right.
Which means to me, without a vision, there aren't disciplines, right? A family meeting are disciplines. When you create that discipline, weekly cadence, that discipline that we're going to listen, that discipline that we're going to come into each other's world, we think that is a part of getting a vision for your family. So we want you to have vision. We want you to have, write it out, make it plain, so that when your kids hear it, when they read it, when they are in proximity of it, they desire the same thing that you want for your family. So I think speaking over your family is huge. We got one more question, and then we're going to close we're just going to love on you a little bit. We're going to thank you, but we got one more question we want to address. And you want to address that one?
Yes. The person who had asked about Christian books for kids, if you go on Amazon, Christian books on emotions, a ton come up. There's great resources there. Final question. How do you keep the kids from attacking each other in the meeting and or fighting about what was shared later? So remember, the ground rules are recited every week. The convener of the meeting is going over the guidelines. So one of the guidelines is we are not going to, one person talks while the rest of us listen. And then reminding that this is a judgment-free zone.
Right.
Like those are the types of guidelines that you're going to put together for your family. And what we would recommend in that moment is, if it gets back to you that the kids are at each other because of something that was brought up, then they need to bring it to you, the parents, to solve it, help them solve the problem. And
you can add that to the guidelines. Like as you're finding challenges, like don't be so stringent about this is how it's supposed to be done. Right. You can add like, hey, if there's something that somebody brings up that you're agitated about, after the meeting, you can come to me and mom and dad, and we can talk about that to maybe put that on the list for the next time.
Yeah.
You know,
and so that you can have a separate discussion about it, because we don't want the other person who got open and shared their emotions to feel attacked, to all of that, or to feel like their point is being analyzed. So I think on that note, just to share from a personal experience, we rarely, with the kid, when I say sacred, this was a sacred, Holy Spirit filled time as a family. Like people would share things like, I felt shame when, gosh, I don't want to share anything personal about my family, but they would share such personal things that it was like untouchable.
Yeah.
Like there was such a reverence for the fact that someone got open and honest. We saw tears. It's like my kids just, they were hesitant. I'm not going to make fun of somebody when they're having tears. And if they did, now we do have jokesters.
Yeah.
Like
we would, the convener would bring it back. We've already said it. Like they would bring it back and say, hey, let's bring the meeting back. Let's remember the ground rules. And you just keep reconfirming, you know, and restating, you know, what you've already talked about, which is in the ground rules.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, XO now. Family, we absolutely love you. We are so excited that you joined us. We want to remind you, visit our website, www.2equals1.com. Sign up for our community. If you're married, if you're single, we have a bunch of single people.
You're preparing for marriage.
Absolutely. Yeah. Also, check out our podcast. We have the 2 Equals 1 marriage podcast with XO, and also our website. And guess what? We will see you next time. We can't wait to see you all again. God bless you all.
It's been fun.